Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend and your spring is well on its way and you're seeing some good temperatures and sunshine. So we'll go ahead and get started today. The 5Q tape breakdown last week was here's a great lesson on how to get better at the liquidity portion of the FIA presentation. We're going to go into that a little bit more later today as well. So a couple of things here. Stock market is designed to transfer money from the active to the patient. So people be paying, how much attention should people be paying to the market? I mean, what do you tell your clients? How often should they look at the market? A lot or never? Yeah, don't. Because what does Warren Buffett say when you invest? What should you be expecting when you invest, or when should you actually look at that investment next? 10 years. He said you should invest. You should invest as if the market could shut down and close for 10 years. So if you don't think the company you're investing in is going to be a good company to be in for 10 years, don't invest in that company. Now, with the index, you're not investing in a company. So I mean, what I used to tell people with the index is that here's the thing: you should either be in the market, and since we don't know which company is going to be the best in the next 10 years, guess what we should do? We don't know what company is going to be the best in the next 10 years. What should we do? Just invest in the market. Now, if you don't think the market's going to do great in the next 10 or 15 years, you should be buying beans and ammunition. Because what if the market is terrible for the next 10, 15 years? Then buy beans and ammunition. So we shouldn't be jockeying in and out. That's why we like that 50-50 or somewhere around there, 60-40, 70-30 guaranteed versus the market, because you don't have to be moving money in and out. Because how good are any of us at timing the market? We're all terrible at that. So a couple of things here. Let me get a couple of now, two different species, the human beings and traditional economics. Traditional economics say that people will be rational and they'll look at the odds, they'll do the math, they'll make good logical decisions. Is that how people deal with money? No. They're more these human beings are when it comes to money, obey behavioral economics, which means there's a big emotional component to how they make their decisions. One of those things that come into play is heuristics. So heuristics are what human beings do to handle having to make decisions. So how many decisions do we have to make almost, every 10 minutes? How many decisions are we making every 10 minutes? Well, should I be on this call or not? Should I listen to Mike or not? Should I pick up the phone that's ringing or not? Should I leave early? I mean, we're making lots. That's right, Keith. We're making tons and tons and tons of decisions. And so our brain, if we had to analyze every single decision we make, would explode. So we fall onto heuristics, which means we take shortcuts to make decisions. So what that's talking about, though, is here's all the information we have for any particular decision, and then this is what we're going to use to make that decision. So information you can use to make a decision: recent, frequent, extreme, vivid, negative. Those all help us make our decisions. Now, when it comes to our clients and how they make decisions, we need to be aware of this. And I'll give you a couple examples of that. This was an experiment that was done. People were offered, they offered 500 different people, 5,000 different people a life insurance policy when they're getting onto a plane. And they said, we'll give you a $100,000 policy for a terrorist attack, or it's $100,000 if you die in a terrorist attack, or the policy would pay for any reason. So either way, you're going to make your family get $100,000. So which one were people more willing to pay a higher amount for? The $100,000 if they died in a terrorist attack, or the $100,000 if they died for any reason? What do you think? Well, I've got it. Well, God's all the answer. Yep, Keith's got it. Yep, Kevin's got it. Yeah, terrorist attack. Now, here's the weird thing. They would pay more if they for the life insurance that paid them $100,000 if they died in a terrorist attack than they would if they died for any reason. Can I ask you a question? If they died in a terrorist attack, would the life insurance policy that would pay out for any reason still pay? Yes. So why the heck would they pay more for something that had a much less likelihood of happening? Again, it comes down to heuristics. Vivid, fear, very good. Vivid and fear. That's right. Vivid and fear. So people do not make dudes, if you show this to a sixth grade math class, would they understand that because the terrorist attack is in for any reason, that this would be the better deal? It's that hard math. When you look at it logically, is the math very hard that for any reason is a much smarter thing than just the terrorist attack? But again, when it comes to money, we're not being logical. Human beings are not logical. So heuristics, here's another example of heuristics and how we do that. If they, again, there's been many studies on this as well, that when you show somebody a single item, only, and this is, again, the numbers will vary a little bit from study to study to study. This particular study, they showed people a single item. It's actually a VCR, so it tells you how old the research was. A VCR, and only 10% of the people purchased the product. Now, when they gave them two items, 66% of people bought. They maybe some of them bought the first VCR, some bought the second VCR, but 66% bought. So how much of a difference is that? That's small or huge? Huge difference. 6 times more people bought when they were shown 2 versus 10. If you show 3, it gets even a little bit better. But when you go over 3, then the purchases started to fall again. So what happens when you go over 3? What happens when you go over 3? Too many decisions. Yeah, analysis by paralysis, right, Nick? That's what happens. Confusion, right? So, and we're going to, when you look at it, we're going to dissect the FIA presentation here in a few minutes. But do we use the 2 and the 3 options? How often do we offer more than 4 options in the FIA presentation? Or in the sale presentation or anything else that we're showing them? Never. But how many times do we use 2 and 3? Our whole process is 2 or 3, 2 or 3. And then here's a little trick that you should also know. So, all right, buddy, you asked for it. I'm coming over to the fence to give you a piece of my mind. So what do you do when you do a great job on the 21-point checklist? So good a job, they tell you they want to go back to their current advisor and give them a piece of their mind. What do you do when that happens? Because do you want them to go back to their advisor and give them a piece of their mind? No. Because what that guy will do is say, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye, I'll never do those bad things again, right? Will the guy try to talk them out of it? Yes. So we don't want them to do that. So what you want to do is when they say that, first of all, when they say anything you don't want them to say, what should you do? Get on their side, got them, agree with them, exactly. Now, after you agree with them, then you want to go through this little process. So can I share something that happened to me? And Jeff, can you get on, Jeff, so we can role play this?
He's coming on here. He's just getting unmuted.
Super. Technology kicking his ass today?
Yeah, I guess we're having a hard time with our mute button here. I think you're muted.
Well, Missy, will you role play with me?
I sure can.
Okay, good. So, this happened to me, Missy, where those on TV we always see these car insurance commercials, right? How many do we see every night on TV?
Oh, there's
Geico,
lots of them.
All Pro, the General, all those things, right? And for years and years, I it's too much of a hassle to call to do that. But I finally, one day, for whatever reason, I went ahead and called. And guess what? I found I could save $800 on my car insurance. So how happy do you think I was?
Very happy.
Anyway, I looked at it, and they compared it, apples to apples, right, line by line by line, the exact same car insurance. I could save $800. So what do you think I did?
Made a change over to save some money.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of a fool would I be if I didn't do that, right?
Well, it'd be silly, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be silly. So I went ahead and did that. And then guess who called me?
Probably your old insurance company.
My old insurance agent. And he said, Mike, you've been a client of mine for 10 years. Why are you changing? And what did I tell him?
Well, because these guys will save me some money.
Well, and he said, how much? And I told him, how many dollars?
So you told them that they're saving you lots of money.
Yeah, I said $800. He goes, oh, well, I could do that for you. Now, what am I thinking when he says that?
Well, if you could do it for me now, why couldn't you have done it for me before?
Exactly. So I said, well, so you know what? I've been a client of yours for the last 10 years. So 800 times 10 is what? $8,000. So if that's
$8,000.
the case, you can do what, and I'll stay with you. Guess how much you need to pay me for me to stay with you? Because you've been taking advantage of me for 10 years. So how much do you need to pay me to stay with you?
Well, now you need to pay me $8,000 because that's what you overcharged me for the last 10 years.
And guess what he said?
I can't do that.
And so what did I tell him?
Well, sorry then. I'm out. I'm going to go over to these guys.
Yeah, why did I do that? Because he's offering to going forward to do the right thing. Why did I tell him to go jump in a lake?
Because you felt like you had gotten screwed for the last 10 years that you had been a good customer of theirs.
Yeah, but you know what? He's fixing it, so what's the big deal?
Yeah, but it's about being treated. They scammed you for the first 10 years.
Yeah. So what kind of a fool would I be if I just went back to that guy and then hoped he wouldn't screw me going forward again? After he fixes this one time, what am I worried about every single time I pay the bill now?
That he's still that he's not treating you fairly, that he's still taking advantage of you.
Exactly. So if I went back to him, what kind of a fool would I be?
You'd be a fool.
Yeah. So, and I bring that up because, hey, what did we find out that your advisor was doing here, Missy?
Well, he's taking advantage of me, made me pay for something that I didn't need to.
And a lot or $25 a year?
A lot.
Thousands or just $25 a year?
Thousands.
Yeah, not even hundreds, thousands. And of course, if you go back to him, guess what he's going to say? Oops.
We'll fix that.
Yeah. And so what would then what are you going to be thinking every single time? Even if he fixes it, first of all, if he fixes it, what are you going to tell him?
Thanks, but it's a little late now.
Yeah, and I guess you've been overcharging me. How much did we find out? Looks like what do we got? $4,500 a year. You're being overcharged. So, and you've been with him for how many years?
I've been with him for about 10 years.
So, what's $4,500 times 10?
$45,000. That's a lot.
So, if he's really serious about keeping you on, what should he do?
Well, he'd have to discount me by that amount of money.
Discount you, or he'd have to do what? Write a check right now for how much?
Yeah, for the $45,000 that I've overpaid over the last 10 years.
What do you think the likelihood is of him doing that?
0.
Instead, he's going to say, hey, you know what? I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to overcharge you like that. We'll get that fixed. And even if he did that, what are you going to be thinking about every single year?
I'm going to be questioning if there's something else that I haven't found yet and that he's overcharging me on.
So what's going to happen if you go back to him? You're going to say you're overcharging me this much, and he's going to say what?
Sorry, we'll fix that.
And how is that helping you?
Well, there's always a little question in my mind whether or not there's something else that I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah. And what have you figured out about over the last 10 years?
That I've been
so he was accidentally doing this?
No, he knew about it.
So help me understand what good could come out of you going back to him?
Nothing.
I guarantee you, he'll say he'll fix it. He's going to fix it. He'd be an idiot not to fix it. How does that help you? When my car insurance guy said he'd fix it, how did that help me?
Yeah, no, it's not helping me. I mean, it's didn't change anything.
Yeah. So if we're a glutton for punishment, I guess I could go in and drag him over the coals, but what's going to be accomplished?
Nothing.
And we found out the reason he did this was why again? All these different things we found out. Why did he do these things?
Well, because I guess it wasn't important to him to recognize that I was paying money I didn't need to be paying.
Well, you say it wasn't important to you. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. But what did we find out? These were accidents?
No, I mean he would have known that I could have gone someplace else
Was
without
it
having to pay it.
he didn't know, or he what?
I guess he didn't care.
We didn't care. No, if he didn't care, then that would be one. Half the time he'd be, come out in your favor, and half the time it come out in your favor. How many times did these things come out in your favor?
They never came out in my favor.
So was it that he didn't care and he didn't do double check on it, or these things actually happened on what?
They happened with him knowingly doing them.
Yeah. So what do you think we should do? Go back and challenge him? Or the best thing to do at this point is to do what?
I just need to move forward doing something different.
Yeah, because the only thing that's going to happen when you go back to him is he's going to say, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye, I'll never what?
I'll never do this to you again. I won't screw you again. You just got to trust me.
And what's that worth at this point?
It's worth nothing.
So why would it make sense to go back and see him at this point?
It wouldn't make any sense at this point. I just need to move forward.
Yeah. So what do you think at this point? What has she decided? Did I tell her not to go back to see the guy? Who told her she shouldn't go back to see the guy? Who told her? And how many times did I have her tell me that? Do I want her to change her mind when she leaves? So do you see how did I go right at her at first, or did I do a third-party story using me and my car insurance guy first? Third party. And how many people with that would have said, no, you should have went back to your car insurance guy? How many people would have said that? No one. So what would she look like? If she told me I'd be a fool to go back to that guy, what does she look like if she goes back to her current guy? Yeah. So does that help you in case that ever happens? Good. So any questions on that before I go forward? I use that a lot because I got a lot of people pissed off at the guy. They wanted to go back and challenge the guy. The wife generally didn't want to challenge the guy. It was the guy that wanted to go back and challenge the guy. And did the guy really want to go back and challenge the guy? What did the husband really want to happen when to go back and challenge that advisor? What did he really want to happen? What did he really want to happen? He wanted the guy to come up with some sort of excuse on why he was doing all these things so that he could stay with it. That's what he was hoping would happen. So can we afford to let him go back and have that discussion? No. And I don't care how angry they are at that guy. Should they ever go back to that guy? No, they should not. Make sense? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the fixed index annuity selling presentation. And the reason being is this, is that the difference between mediocrity and excellence is attention to detail. The difference between winning and losing is most often not quitting. So keep learning, once you've learned the script, go back and learn it even better. Because here's the difference between closing an average of 20 to 30% and the average of closing everyone you want to. So, I mean, the average 20 to 30% for most advisors would double, triple their income. But we're not happy with that. We want to close everybody. So what's the difference? When you're closing on average using our presentation, you will see, using the FIA presentation, you will see your closing ratio jump way up. You'll see a doubling of the amount of people you close, but it won't be everybody. So when I'm looking at somebody who knows or is using our FIA script, what makes them average? What do you think makes them average when they're doing our presentation? What do you think makes them average? That they don't know the script? Generally, they know the script pretty well. not sticking the script, missing small details. They don't get the other person to fire their advisor. Remember, at this point, they've already fired the other advisor, right? So now we're into the FIA presentation, the implementation meeting. So nobody's got it yet. The difference between the average is when you do all the telling, selling, preaching, or teaching. When you tell them, if you go through the script and you're doing all the telling, selling, preaching, and teaching, you're telling them the whole script, guess what? You'll close more people, but you won't close everybody. You won't even close the majority of the people. Because if you tell them everything, guess what? Do you get an advantage? If they buy an FIA, do you get an advantage of that? Yeah, you make money. So anything that comes out of your mouth is what? Suspect. The reason the FIA presentation has a 94% closing ratio is not because of the script. Yeah, the script is great. But that's not why. That's not why it has a 94% closing ratio. Why does it have a 94% closing ratio? Because when you do it right, the client is going to tell you 100 times in an hour why this is better than what they currently are doing. That's why. That's why. When they tell you 100 times the FIA is better than what they're currently doing, do you notice there? Do they tell us 100 times that the FIA is the best thing since sliced bread? Never. They never tell us that. Remember, we just talked about heuristics? We're going to have them do side-by-side comparisons with what they're currently doing, or side-by-side comparisons with the two things they could be doing, which is to be in safe or to be in growth. So we never try to couch the FIA presentation as the best thing since sliced bread. We have them understand it's better than any other options they have. Everything has advantages. Everything has disadvantages, including the FIA. All we want them to do is to say, you know what, though? When we look at the advantages and the disadvantages of the FIA has way more advantages of being in the market, has way more advantages than being in guaranteed, and it has way less downside of being in the market and way less downside of being in guaranteed. That's all we're getting them to say. They have to tell us what they want to do. Make sense? So what I do want to go through, because when I've listened to some of the advisors in the last month or so on doing the FIA presentation with clients, I've seen some regular mistakes that people are making. So I want to make sure we go back and have you go back and look at the FIA presentation and really zoom in or focus on doing some of these things better. So one thing on the tutorial, the crystal ball, I think I made it a lot more complicated than you need to be on the crystal ball. Really, the crystal ball slide comes down to three different things, which is this. So Missy, can you get on again? Just ask these three questions, and it's a lot simpler than what the tutorial has. Okay, so Missy, if I told you I could see in the future, how rich would I be?
You'd be super rich.
I'd be super rich. If anybody told you they could see in the future, how rich would they be?
They'd be super rich as well.
Yeah, so if anybody tries to tell you that they know what stock to be in or what stock not to be in, or the market's going to go up next year, or the market's going to go down next year, or they try to tell you anything about what's going to happen in the future, you know they're full of what?
They're full of crap.
They're full of crap. So guys, if you ask those three questions, how rich would I be? How rich would anybody be? So if anybody tells you they can tell the future, they're full of what? You've got this slide down. You can really simplify that. And what do you think I'm trying to accomplish with that slide? I'm trying to get them to admit that that money manager who says he's got a great algorithm, that mutual fund who says that they know what you should be in and not be in, that guy on Jim Cramer who's a total putz is telling you what stock to be in or out of. Ken Fisher telling you what stock to be in and out of. They're all full of what? Because what are they all telling their clients? That they can see into the future. But if I tell them that they're full of crap, that's not going to work. Who has to say that their money manager, Ken Fisher, Jim Cramer, their mutual fund manager, their advisor, anybody telling them that they can see in the future, that's garbage. If I say it, it's not going to work. They have to say it. Does that make sense? So you can really simplify that into those three questions. How rich would I be? How rich would anybody be? So if anybody says that, they're full of what? Unless they're that rich. Then we're going to say, so help me help you find the perfect investment. First of all, is there a perfect investment? No, but there is a perfect investment for you. So let me ask you just some general questions. to see where you'd be at. So how much of your principal are you okay with losing? What are they going to say to that?
I don't want to lose any of my principal.
Yeah. How long before you would want to get that back?
A year?
Yeah, that's what most people say is a year. How much of your principal would you like to grow? And how much money do you want to access when you need it? So guys, how many times when you ask these questions do the people say exactly what you want them to say? Oh, and actually, Missy, I'm going to have you change this to that table that we use actually at training.
Okay.
So the words pop up when they say it. So the reason I want that to happen, guys, is this. So I wanted to show you this slide and show you a slight change we're going to make, which is when you ask somebody, how much of your principal are you okay with losing, and it says none, they say none, and then you click and it says none, what effect does that have on a client? Where they predicted what the answer was going to be before you actually even clicked it. What effect does that have? If you ever watch confirmation, absolutely glad. But if you ever watch like Match Game on the TV or Price is Right or what's the one with this with Pat Sajak? What's that one called?
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune. When you get that right, how does that make you feel? What's that do to your endorphins when you get that answer right? Yeah, it reinforces their decision, exactly. So when you say how long before you want to get it back, and they say, well, a year, which is what 80% of people say, and then it says, and then you click it and it says a year again. What is that doing for them? They are predicting what the answer is. It fills their mind full of endorphins, and if their minds are full of endorphins, guess what that is doing for your selling process. And they say, how much of your principal would you like to grow? They say all of it, and then ding, all of it shows up here. How much of your money do you want to access? All of it. Ding, it shows up here. Do you see what's happening to? And then we actually would have this on the same table. Do you want to plan for the best, the worst, or both? And ding, both comes up. What does that do to them when all of the answers that they predicted show up on that slide? You've almost made your sale right there. Why? Because they are now 100% excited about this presentation. They feel smart. They feel empowered. They think this is right up my. Obviously, Mike knows exactly what I'm looking for because everything that he's asking here, I predicted those answers. See, when they predict the answers and they show up on the screen, that is a huge thing to them. That makes. Do you think that's a little thing or a big thing? I want to see everybody say L for little or B for big. Yeah, big. So we'll get that swapped up for you. I didn't want to just to show up and then you guys wouldn't say, what's the change here? But so do you understand why I'm making that change? It's so that they are going to predict what's going to be on there. Then we're going to get into Warren Buffett. Everybody does this really well. You all do this slide really well. Now the funny math, I'm going to give you some hints here because I see a lot of you guys. This is a troublesome slide for it's very, very important, but it's troublesome for some people because people can get a little bit confused. As soon as we start throwing numbers at them, they can get a little bit confused. So the first thing we want to do is we all know how you average numbers. You add if there's 10 numbers, you add up all 10 numbers, divide by 10. If it's 7 numbers, you add up 7 numbers, divide by 7. So we all get that, but we're putting these people on the spot, and math really screws up people in the head. So you want to remember, give them an option or let them know how we divide or how we come with an average. So the next thing we want to cover is funny math. Now, in funny math, what we're going to do is look at average rates of return because some weird things happen with average rates of return. So if you remember, when we look at averages, when I was in high school, I learned about averages. What I would do is if I was going to find the average of 5 numbers, I'd add up all 5 numbers and then divide by 5, Missy. If I was going to do 7, I would add up all 7 numbers and divide by what?
I'd divide by 7.
So do you see how I first told them how to average, and then I just had her confirm that she understands how to average, but by not saying yes, but giving her an example and letting her give me that answer of 7 so that we know we're all on board. Does that make sense? You have to do that beforehand. Otherwise, people can get screwed up. I know that we work with numbers all the time. We know the script. We know what we're going to be saying, but these people are deer in the headlights, some of them, and do we want them to get confused here? No. So help them out. Help them understand how averages are. Now, the second hint is this when we get to this, is don't use percentages. Because when you start adding and subtracting percentages, guess what happens to people's brains? Even really smart people get confused. We say, now if I have 50%, if I have 100%, I add 50%, and then I minus 100%, and then I add 50%. Guess what happens? They get all screwed up. But real numbers, that's easy. So Missy, let's look at this option A. This is investment option A, and the return the first year it goes up 100. Okay, goes up 100, and the next year it goes down 50. So if we have 100 and we minus 50, what are we at? Or what are we at?
We're at 50.
So do you notice, did I use percentages there, or did I just use numbers?
Just numbers.
If I say it went up 100% and then it went down 50%, that can screw people up. It even screws me up a little bit in my head. So instead, I want to say, so if you have 100 and you minus 50, you're at what? How
50.
many people get that right? Virtually everybody. Now, if I have 50, because I had 100, I minus 50, I have 50, but I add 100 plus that 50 that's still left, what do I end up with?
Now I'm back to 150.
I'm back to 150. And then I subtract 50 from that 150. What am I at?
Now I'm down to 100.
100. So we have a total of 100. So do you see how I did that without using percentages? Just the numbers. How many people will get that right? 99% of people will get that right when you do it that way. Okay? And I say, now we have 100. We said there's how many numbers here? One. How many numbers here?
There's 4.
Okay, so to get an average, I'm going to divide 100 by what?
By 4.
So what's 100 divided by 4?
That's going to be 25.
25. 25% is the average rate of return. If an account goes up 100%, then down 50%, then up 100%, then down 50%, the average rate of return is going to be what?
25%.
You see, I didn't add the percentages in until what? All the way through it or till the end?
At the very end.
Yep. I'm seeing if people will answer that.
Sorry.
That's right. Guys, do you see that? I'm not getting any yeas or nays. Oh, good. Okay, so now we have option B here, and we have up 20, and we lose nothing. What are we still at?
We're still at 20.
Then we add another 20. What are we at?
Now we're at 40.
And we lose nothing. We're at what?
We're still at 40.
Which means we're at a total of 40. And how many numbers are there here again?
There's 4.
And we're going to divide by how many numbers?
So I'm going to divide by 4.
Which equals 40%
get 10.
divided by 4 is 10. So if you had your druthers, would you rather have a 25% average or a 10% average over 10 or over 4 years?
I'd rather have 25.
Yeah, 25, right? No brainer. Now here's where the funny math comes in. When we apply these numbers, because how many people, I said, would you rather have an average of 25 or 10%? How many people say 25?
Well, everyone would say 25.
Everyone. And that's why the investment industry loves to banter about this average rate of return. But can I show you what happens when we apply real money to it?
Sure.
So let's put $100 into each of these accounts, okay? So if you have $100 and it goes, now watch what I do here, guys, and it goes up by 100% or doubles. See, again, the 100%, a lot of people would get that. But how many people would I say if I said if it doubles, how many people would get that? More or less? More. Everyone would get that, right? So I'll say now, so if we have $100 and it goes up 100% or doubles, we'd be at what?
200.
200. And again, what's happening? You see how as she gives me the number and it fills it in? What does that happen to her belief that these numbers are accurate? If she predicts what's going to show up in these blanks, goes way up. Now, if we have a 200 and it goes down by 50%, or what do you think the word I'm going to throw in here? Or what am I going to throw in there? Very good, Nick. Or or we lose half of it. What are we at?
Now we're at 100.
100. You got it. And then it goes up by 100% or it doubles again. We're at what?
Back to 200.
And then we goes down 50% or we lose half of it again. We're down to what?
Now we're back down to 100.
So guys, have I done any of the math here? Who's done all of the math? That's right, Bonnie. You got that right. Yep, they did. Okay. So now we start out with how much, Missy?
We started with 100.
And we ended up with how much?
With 100.
So how much did we make?
We didn't make anything.
We made nothing. So our average rate of return is what?
It was 25%.
But in reality, our money made how much?
0.
So how accurate is it the average rate of return when a mutual fund or a money manager tells you about their average rate of return?
It doesn't mean anything.
Now let's look here. $100 and it goes up 20%. What's that going to be?
It's going to be 120.
120. We lose nothing. It'll still be at what?
120.
And then that 120 goes up 20%. I'll help you out here. That'd be 144. Guys, just help them there because that's too much for most people. It's at 144. If we lose, and I'll say, does that make sense to you? I have to at least get them to say, yeah, no, that makes sense, because they're happy you've done that math for them because they're starting to panic there. So does that make sense for you then, 144? Does that seem about right?
Yep, that seems right.
A little bit above that extra 20 because we have that. So, and then we lose how much here?
We're losing 0.
So we're at what?
That's 144.
So we start out with how much?
100.
And we're at what? How much now?
144.
So how much did we go up?
We went up 44.
44. So now if I divide 44 by 4, we'd end up with what?
With 11.
11. That's even worse or better than the 10% average?
Oh, that's better.
So at first, you and I both wanted that 25%, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the end, we find out which one would we rather have.
In the end, we'd rather have the 10% average.
Yeah, we'd rather have the 10%. Because remember we said with Warren Buffett, what was his number 1 rule?
Don't lose money.
And number 2 rule is don't forget that one. So
Correct.
see why he says that? Because even though this has a higher average rate of return, when it comes to your money, your hard-earned dollars, which better? Getting a higher average rate of return or never losing money?
Never losing money.
So which one would you rather have? This high rate of return here? Because would you be happy with that 25% average rate of return? If we hadn't gone through this, how happy would you be if I said you're going to average that?
Well, it sounds good on the surface.
Yeah, but in the end, we find out what?
It doesn't work out.
It's far more important to make sure we never what?
Lose any money.
So guys, how many times have I told them that not losing money, or had them tell me not losing money is the important thing? And did I make any? I made 1 or 2 statements in here, but those 1 or 2 statements had nothing to do with the actual point. It was just to set up the next question. So who told me all these numbers? Did I tell them these numbers, or did she tell me these numbers? She told me. Did she tell me the moral of the story, which is that not losing money is way more important than making money, and that average rate of return is what? Bunk. So you got to really work on this slide to make sure they're telling you these things. And this is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make with the FIA is they run through these numbers. And if you run through these numbers, guess what's happening to their brain? Yeah, it's confused, it's scrambled. And I don't care how smart they are. I have a master's in nuclear physics. I got 1 wrong on my SAT for math. I know math. But when Jerry or Matt start explaining a product to me and they start running through the math, guess what my brain does? Turns off. Because it requires what? Work. And we are lazy. We are not thinkers. We would have liked to avoid thinking at all costs. So you got to break it down simple and easy. And the funny thing is, by having the numbers come up as they predict the numbers, they actually get a little bit more excited about doing the math because they're getting it right. Guess how happy we are when we do math and it comes out right? Our brain just gives us that shot of endorphins. But the moral of the story of this is what? There's 2 morals to the story when it comes to Marty. There's two moral stories when it comes to this. Is that what? Average rates of return are full of crap, and that we're much better off not losing money than making money. If they get those 2 things from the slide, you've just sold a what? An FIA. Make sense? And we're going to remind them of that again. So, and we're going to say, so what did we learn from that slide? Are we more worried about never losing money or trying to get as much growth as possible? Oops. Now, there's another rule when it comes to investing. We want to buy when it's high or low. Do we want to buy when it's expensive, or we want to buy when it's cheap? Well, it's cheap. That means we want to buy when it's high or low. Low. And we want to sell when we're getting the best price or the worst price, or the best price. So that means we want to sell high or we want to sell low. We want to sell high. So you got it. Yeah. Oops. So we want to buy low, sell high. Do you see how I would have made them? Now, I ran through that, but who's saying to buy low and sell high? They are. So did you notice I'd say, so do we want to buy high or low? And I give them do we want to buy when it's the cheapest, or the most expensive? And what is everybody going to say there? Cheap. So that means we want to buy when it's high or when it's low? When it's low. Now when we sell, we want to sell when we get the best price or the worst price? With the best price. That means we want to sell when it's high, when we get the best price, or low when we get the worst price? They say low. Even this, have you noticed sometimes they even get confused on this? And I change it from high and low to getting to something they can better understand. Do you want to buy when it's a cheap or expensive? How many people would get, how much easier is that to answer than do you want to buy low or high? See, low or high is a little bit more abstract. By cheap or expensive, how many people instantaneously would get that right? Instantaneously. And then I just correlate cheap, have them correlate cheap to low and expensive to high. Does that make sense? Am I confusing people? Am I speaking Greek? Can I get some yays or no's on that? Okay, good. So I'm changing abstract language into something they can immediately understand there. So what do we say about anybody who could predict the future? They're full of baloney. So we can't predict the future, but what if we could do this? What if we at the beginning of the year, do I have any clue what's going to happen at the beginning of the year to the market, Missy?
No, I have no idea.
No idea. But what if at the end of the market, I could decide and look back and say, geez, I wish I would have been in the market at the beginning of the year. How would that be?
It'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, have you ever heard that rear view investing is what? 2020 or totally blind?
It's much easier, like 2020.
It's 2020, right? Because if the market went up at the end of the year, would I want to be in the market or out of the market?
If it went up, I'd want to be in the market.
Yeah, and if it went down at the end of the year and I look back and say, boy, it's down 30%, what would I say? Boy, I wish I had not been, wish I'd been in the market, or wish I'd been out of the market?
If it went down, I'd want to be out of the market.
I'd be out of the market. I want to be out of the market. So what we'd say is that when the market, at the end of the year, if the market was up, we'd want to be what?
In.
And if the market was down, we want to be what?
Out.
Now, we're doing this at the beginning of the year by predicting what's going to happen in the future, or we're looking back and using our 2020 rear view investing?
We're looking back and using 2020.
But how could you possibly do that? That seems what? Too good to be what?
Too good to be true.
Yeah. So how do we do that? Well, here's what we would do with the Warren Buffett option. Now, how much of your principal would you say you want to lose?
I don't want to lose any of my principal.
Okay, so we're going to put your principal in something that's 100% guaranteed, like government bonds. So if we put in government bonds, is your principal safe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what will government bonds pay you every year? What do we call it, what they pay you every year?
Interest.
Interest. So we're going to leave your principal there, but we're going to take your interest, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to touch your principal?
Nope, not touching my principal.
But we're going to take your interest and we're going to invest that in something. And we're going to invest in that thing that will give you the option at the end of the year to look back. There's an investment that will give you the option to look back at the end of the year and decide whether you want to be in the market or out of the market. Now, guys, out of role play here, did I call the investment an option? Did I call the investment? Now, we're going to take your money and we're going to invest that in options. You do not do that. Do not say we're going to take your money and invest it in options, because either number one, they've heard of the word options and they think options are what? Great or dangerous? Scary, right? They think they're scary. Or number two, they've never heard of options, and that's no good either, because then you're talking what? They're confused. So instead, but how many people when I say, now we're going to put that in an investment, which at the option, just like we talked about, Missy, at the option, at the end of the year, you can look back and say, if the market was up, you can say, gee, I wish I had been what?
I wish I had been in the market or out of the market.
And at the end of the year, if it was down, I could look back and say, geez, I wish I'd been what?
Out of the market.
Out of the option, out of the market, exactly. So it gives you the option. Now, it's not going to give you all of the return if the market goes up, but it will protect your money if the market goes down. Now, at the end of the year, let's say the market went down. How much principal did you lose?
At the end of the year, if it went down, I wouldn't have lost anything, I guess, with this option.
Yeah, you didn't lose any. You didn't lose any of your principal. But what happened to your interest?
I wouldn't have gotten any interest.
No interest. So that, remember, we said if the market goes down, you lose how much?
If the market goes down, I'd lose it all.
How much of all of your interest, but how much of your principal would you lose?
Oh, no, none of my principal. Not losing any of my principal.
So you wouldn't make any money, but you wouldn't what?
Lose any money.
Now, if the market goes up, is your principal still there?
Yeah.
And now, because the market went up, you chose to be in the market, what would happen to the interest?
I'm going to get that too.
Yeah, so do you see how this works?
Yeah.
So if the market goes up or goes down, you can choose at the beginning of the year, predict the future, or you can see at the end, decide at the end of the year.
I get to decide at the end of the year.
Yeah. And will your principal ever be at risk?
My principal would never be at risk. No.
Keith is asking, would I be okay with the to use choice or choose? You could, but I like option because at the end they say, well, how do they do that? And I can say, well, you know how they do that? There's actually an investment that's called an option, and that's exactly how FIAs work. It's called an option. And why do we call it an option, Missy?
Because I get to choose how it's going to work. It can be in or out.
Yeah. Paul is new, so I won't blow up at him. Let's see how many guys can get this. He said, what do I do when they bring up that I'm not getting dividends? Well, first of all, how many people at this point in the presentation are going to bring that up? None. The only guys who ever bring that up are who? Advisors, right? So how many of you guys, give me that, before I give Paul the answer, how do we answer the dumbass advisor, and not you, Paul, because you don't know this yet, but the ding-dong advisors who say, yeah, but the FIA isn't including dividends. Yeah, Nick's got it. So, Paul, let me ask you a question. When you invest your clients' monies, do you do it for free? You don't charge any fees? You have no turnover costs? You have no expenses? Guys, when we look at the expenses, turnover costs, et cetera, that investments have, what happens to the argument about not having fees? So as long as the advisor is putting their clients into an index fund and not charging them fees, then guess what? They have the right to say that. If instead they are doing, because guys that have done 21-point checklists, what are the kind of fees that you find? More than 1% or less than 1%? More than 2% or less than 2%? Yeah. So that whole argument about, first of all, a client's never going to bring up dividends, but the whole argument for the advisors who still think that, the ding-dongs who think that, is that, well, okay, I guess that's a valid argument. You're not getting dividends, but then again, I'm assuming you're not charging any fees then? Because if you're charging fees, then guess what? Comes out in the what? Comes out in the wash. Yeah, exactly. Comes out in the wash. So my main point here is people need to have some rudimentary understanding of how these things work. But I've heard too many guys start talking about, and they're going to take your money and put it into options. No. Don't do that. We turn this from advisor speak into what? A story. You see how we turn it into a story? So how much your principal going to lose? None. And then what are they going to do with that interest? They're going to give you the option at the end of the year to do what? Be in or be out. Does that make sense? So those are two of the things that I found that people really have problems with is this one here, funny math, and this is really, really important to get it right. And this one where they start talking, sorry, I'll get to it. This one where they start talking in a language people don't understand. Why do we want them to understand, at least, first of all, guys, is this how an FIA works? The way I've just explained it, is that how an FIA works? Yeah. So why is it important for the client to understand that? Because they've been told anything too good to be true is what? Too good to be true. But when I do this, do they feel like they have an understanding of why this thing would not lose money when the market goes down and why it would make money when the market goes up? Does it seem like it's magical anymore? And they're like, oh, God, I get how that works now. Does that make sense? Coolio. So does this help you to break down the FIA? We're running out of time here. I was going to do the whole FIA. Does it help you to break down the FIA like this to understand why we're doing what we're doing and looking at these little things? Or is it a waste of my time? Okay, so would you like, I ran out of time obviously here. Would you want me to go ahead and finish the FIA precedent next week from this point? Good, everybody's saying yes. Okay, so Missy, we'll change those slides that I told you, or these slides here at the beginning. Oops, these slides here,
Yep.
and I'll show you how we change those next week. And then I'll pick up then with the table. We'll pick up with the table next week. Coolio. You guys, thanks for sticking on today. I'm glad that you find this helpful, because I get a little bit skittish when I go through things like this, thinking you're saying, yeah, I know this already, blah, blah, blah. But I'm glad you're saying that go ahead and look at some pointers and learn from some of the things that I'm seeing other people do. So that's terrific. You guys have a fantastic rest of the week, and we'll talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody.